followed by a guest speaker, Mr. Sunil, that shall be concluded, and then we'll be headed by Mr. Shangari, Mr. Shwetab Singh, Mr. Devansh, which will be followed by a question answer session. So please keep on writing your question answers in the Q&A box, and it will conclude with a vote of thanks. Now, I would like to request our chairman of Capricorn Technologies, Mr. Chakresh Jain, to just introduce Capricorn Technologies. Sir.
Thank you, Naman. So first of all, I like to thank CAI for allowing us to host this webinar with all their members. And I'll not take much time. I'll just like to, I know Capricorn now, we have been doing so many webinars in past 2-3 years. So we don't want to repeat, but I'll just like to share a news with all the participants that now as Capricorn, we are group of a global alliance as WinZero. And we are now partnered with 3 other group companies, US CAD in USA, CADline in UK, and A2K in Australia. So we are now part of this group WinZero, and our focus as WinZero is to, and we know today this is one of the big challenge everyone has been talking about is sustainability. So have zero impact on our mother. So working towards with customers like yourself who are now trying to reduce the impact on the mother nature. And that's where we are here to support you. And I'll not like to take much time about ourselves. We'd like to hear our key speakers who are here and talking a lot about how we and our technology can do this. Thank you, Naman. Back to you.
Thank you so much, sir, for your kind words. Now, I would like to introduce our first speaker for the day, Mr. M.K. Sunil. He heads the AEC division of Autodesk India. He has been an integral part of the Revit team.
Naman, I'll just check. I think Sunil is joined. I think he's, I'll check. Meanwhile, maybe we can move to the second speaker.
Okay, sure, sir. So I hope sir joins in continue on that. So we'll move forward to our second speaker, Mr. Manish Sangari, Vice President, Country Head, Building Plus Places, India, Data Center and Technology Business Leader in Asia. He's an IIT alumni. Mr. Manish is a keen strategic business leader with compassionate people mentorship.
Naman, just 1 second. I think both of them are still to join. We can start with Mr. Shwetab Singh.
Sure, sir, sure. Mr. Shwetab Singh, Country Head, Underground Structures at Altinoc India Private Limited. He is also an alumni of IIT Delhi with vast experience in structures, substructure works. For the past 12 years, he has been associated with major industry giants like Gujarat Hydrocarbon, Power SEZ, Indian Oil Tanking, etc., and has some notable contribution in the projects like Silyara Barco Tunnel in Uttarakhand, Zilserek Junction in Turkey. I would request Mr. Shwetab to join and enlighten us with his views. Sir.
Thank you, Naman, and good morning to everyone. And thank you for this opportunity where we can present our views on the very important subject. Of course, there is no denial to the fact that this is a very important subject as far as rapid urbanization is concerned. And as you can see that I come from a background which deals mostly into the underground structures. So the perspective that I would like to bring here is the role of underground structures in rapid urbanization. And the topics that I would like to cover or like to discuss here would range from the introduction part, wherein we would like to focus and discuss upon the background and advent of underground structures and its consequences on rapid urbanization from the Indian context, and where we are right now and where we are headed, and how the technology is intervening, and how the amalgamation is going to happen in the future, looking at the past and the present trends. Thank you, and I'll start with the discussion here. So I'll like to trace back the whole development to 1998 when the first phase of Delhi Metro started in India. And that was the time that the underground space, in true terms, started to be utilized or to be explored for the purpose of course, we all know mass urban rapid transit systems. And that actually paved the way for urbanization or urbanizing landscape that we are witnessing these days. So by 2002, the first corridors, which included the underground as well as the elevated DMRC corridors, were operational, and it was for everyone to visualize and see how they have started facilitating towards the rapid urbanization by providing underground connectivity for mass rapid transits. In the meanwhile, what it actually brought to this country was the plethora of the technology and machineries in terms of the excavation machineries, the tunnel boring machines, which were new to new to the urbanization concept. Of course, the hydroelectric projects were being done in this country, but they were being done in remote areas and were not into a direct interface with the general masses of this country. But this is what the urbanization and urban transportation brought to the front, that it became a very integral part of the policy making. So it tethered the policy making and the policy makers, and it opened the horizons, and it became a part of the ethos of urban development in this country, where the underground space cannot be ignored anymore, and it hasn't been. In last 2 decades there has been a great leaps and bound development as far as the utilization of underground space is concerned. Now, when we look at the present and the future, probably there are majorly three aspects that we can discuss about. One is certainly the policy paradigm within which the underground space utilization has been discussed. And the other thing that I would like to discuss about is the ground behavior techniques and the prediction techniques that have improved over the years, and how these are going to take shape. And the third thing that I would like to discuss here is of course, it is an extension of the policy paradigm, but into the technology aspect, the futuristic technology, and where we are headed. So, as far as the policy paradigm is concerned, uh, the the first set of policies, which actually you can say were towards landscape change in urbanization, I can say is post 2014, when the concepts like smart cities and logistic hubs, multimodal integration came into picture, and the utilization of underground space was taken up in a very comprehensive manner. But still, there is no integrated plan. There is a need for a composite policy which can include the underground spaces for development, and which can be consistently adopted by the authorities across the states. So this is where a lot of work needs to be done. And now add to it, apart from the public spaces, the utilities and the logistics that are to be catered, and the utilization of underground space, which can revolutionize. Of course, what we have seen till now is a very basic development of the underground spaces. But when we talk about the complex environment that I'm just suggesting, which includes the public spaces, that will include the logistic spaces, as well as the utility spaces in the new as well as the old dwellings, that is the olden cities and the new cities, and the integration that requires to be done, has to be done under a policy paradigm, under a policy framework, which has to be consistent, so that we have a texture which is consistent with the development of or the concept of urbanization. So that is a very important aspect. And then about the advent of the technology, of course, there is no denial that the slurry machines, the earth pressure machines, and Now, since we're talking about the hybrid machines which are being used extensively in tunneling, they have become a very integral part, and over last 2 decades they have seen a sea change. A rapid technology development has happened in these machines, and most of these machines, as we still know, are being imported in India. And looking at the future and the prospect in this country, uh, it is time that the process of indigenization can start in this country. Sorry, indigenization can start, and the policies are framed so that the manufacturers, the research and development into these machineries and equipments, they become sustainable, they become economically viable. So that is one part of the policy, and we can link it with all the tenets of Atmanirbharta and Make in India concepts. And similarly, moving into the next dimension, that is about monitoring and visualization, which is a very important tenet of tunneling industry, or I would say the underground space industry. So that is where our partners like Autodesk, Capricorn, they come into picture, wherein the tools needs to be developed. Of course, there are tools which are available to us, but customizing of these tools in providing solutions or visualization and real-time monitoring of the projects, interfacing with the authorities, interfacing with the project, the SPVs, is something that is required to be done at the real time. And what we say today is the digital space creation or the virtual space creation in the real time. What we have been able to do with Capricorn in past 1 year is that we have tried to work upon a couple of projects, out of which one of the project where we could develop the complete underground space, because visualization of the underground space becomes a very difficult proposition. But certainly the BIM modeling and the infrastructure, the other platforms that we have used has actually helped us. So what we can see here is an integrated approach to the project. Uh, this is a railway come highway infrastructure, which includes the railway as well as the highway tunnels, and apart from that, a host of underground facilities. So this has been developed as part of the digital space creation, and this is actually the precursor to the virtual reality, what we have been talking about or what we are perceiving, and where the industry is headed towards. So what you can see, I think it's self-explanatory that you can see the bridges as well as the flyovers and the tunnel portals being integrated in a landscape which is semi-urban. I won't say it's completely urban, but semi-urban, and that is where the development thrust is going to be, and that is where the urbanization is going to be. Uh, I think we can look at some other cross sections and other details very closely if we can move forward in the same presentation. And of course, these are three-dimensional views that are developed using Civil 3Ds for the tunnels and their portals. So these kind of visualization that we are seeing was not possible earlier. And of course, with the use of technology and the platforms that are being provided, which are technologically supported by groups, by companies like Capricorn and their associates, this has become possible. Also, we would like to show you how the electromechanical integrations have happened in these projects. Do we have those slides? Can we?
Sure, sir. Just give me a moment.
Yeah, please, please. So what we see here is the integration of the geological sections or the geological landscape of the area, the topography of the area, and the structural layout of the area, they all getting integrated to create a three-dimensional view. So of course this is a static view, but most of our usage is in a dynamic view, which actually takes you through the infrastructure, which of course we can understand very well that this extrapolates into the video generation and real-time monitoring during the project management interfaces. For that also there are applications that are being tried at all the levels, and I think in a couple of maybe by next year we will have the project management tools integrated with the digital space in the real time monitoring, uh, which will be able to control the project costs, monitor the project schedules. So this will integrate the whole process of concept planning, design, and execution up to cost management. So that is where the future lies. Of course, I wanted to discuss more about the ground behavior techniques, the methods in which the ground behavior can be predicted with more reliability. Of course, the geotechnical and geophysical investigations that have been developed for the mining industry or the petroleum sector is being utilized in the infrastructure and the urbanization, the underground space behavior in the urban landscape. And there is still need to integrate the geophysical, geotechnical, and the geological investigations in a manner that can develop into more reliable ground behavior prediction techniques. So that is an area of focus. Moving forward, where the technology is, yes, underground spaces cannot be ignored, and it is going to be an integral part if we are looking at tunnels that are needed to be the concept of pods, the pod taxis, the electric pods, and we are aware of development that's happening in Western world, most specifically Los Angeles, where Tesla or Elon Musk's company, the tunnel boring company, they're trying really hard to connect the whole city through a network of underground tunnels where the electric pods can operate and reduce the travel time. So that is a futuristic way of looking at it, and certainly India will need it in times to come, provided this becomes a successful experiment. And then we cannot talk about the concept of hyperloop without integrating it with the underground structures or utilization of underground spaces. Of course, it is still in the prototype and modeling stages, but before it is brought into the utilization in public spaces as well as the logistic spaces, the underground space will require to be explored, and we are looking at the generation of tunnel boring machines, which are going to be very fast paced machines. They are not going to be machines which will take 3 or 4 meters a day, or for that matter 10 meters a day. We are talking about machines who can take almost 100 meters a day to achieve the kind of urbanization and the kind of space requirement that we are looking at, or we are projecting. I would like to conclude by saying that yes, we require a policy umbrella within which the underground space utilization can be given a consistent treatment, and also we are looking at the possibility of indigenizing most of these technologies. Maybe the process should start so that by by next decade we have almost 80 to 90% of the processes indigenized, and we are in a position to export these services or maybe share it with the countries around India and other parts of the world who are looking for rapid urbanization and development. And the lastly but not least, we are looking at technologies for better visualization and better ground behavior techniques. I think that is where the future lies for the underground space, and associated with and carrying it forward into the rapid urbanization. Thank you. Any questions I would like to take up, or maybe we can do it later whenever the question round starts.
Thank you so much, Shwetab sir, for your valuable experiences in the underground spaces. I really hope your vision for the Atmanirbhar Bharat with the future, and we are heading towards that. Thank you so much, sir, for that. Also, I would like to request all the participants to please keep writing their question answers that will be answered in the last part of the webinar. Now, I would like to introduce Mr. Manish Angari and request him to join the stage. He's the Vice President and Country Head of Building Plus Places India, Data Center and Technology Business Leader in Asia. He's an IIT alumni with keen strategic business leader with compassionate people mentor, astute program manager. He has worked across Europe, US, America, Middle East, Asia Pacific, and is leading and cross-functional global integrated teams to win and deliver stakeholders' expectations around accommodating humane ecosystem. Sir, I would like to request you to come and join.
Thank you, Naman. Thank you. Good to see you, Sunil, again. And Chakreshji, Shweta, thanks for pulling me in. Actually, last couple of days were extremely busy. We had a big delegation here, but I'm so glad, always glad to come back on this. I want to share my screen. How is it possible, Naman? Can you
Yes, sir, sure.
cross your screen?
So, are you able to share your screen right now, sir?
I am trying to share. It is. Are you able to see my screen?
Yeah. Yes, sir, it's coming up.
Thank you. Let me try and do it full screen. So very good morning to all of you. My name is Manish, as already introduced. Although I look at largely buildings and tech sector, but there's a lot of infrastructure play. So I will, rather than getting into detail, give you a little overview of how we and what we are seeing technology as a rapid enabler to tackle this urbanization. So what I would like to point out here is that when we look at urban context, here to solve problems, we have to actually look at all the levels. So for example, in ACOM right now, we are doing a city program where we look at all the large cities. And then from that level, we go down to how we can integrate master planning, then look at the infrastructure, which is road, bridges, tunnels, and even then connecting them back to the buildings and eventually rooms and then sensors. So this entire journey of digitizing the whole ecosystem is what we believe is the right way of looking at it. If we do it in isolation, there are advantages which we've seen already happening in this world. We've already seen how we can integrate 3D. We can create models where we can do coordination, we can do drawing production, but I think there are bigger challenges which we are seeing in this day, and some of them are, how can we make our place more sustainable? How can we make it more livable? How can we see it's going towards net zero, or where the carbon footprint is going down? And these are some of the issues which when we tackle, it has to have a macro and micro approach constantly. And we've constantly seen that it cannot be done until unless we put a digital infrastructure on board, even if it's an existing which we have to upgrade, or we are making a new one. Very good example, we are working on NEOM project in Saudi Arabia, which is coming very big. And that is allowing us to work right from top down. And there are other projects where we are upgrading a lot of cities, entire cities, and there's a big shift of in the next couple of centuries, people will move towards mega cities. And we're running a massive program around mega cities. And all this is possible if only if we're using digital as our enabler. So apart from 3D modeling and the advantages around better documentation or quality output in terms of detailed fabrication models, where we can then have a supply chain which can do off-site manufacturing. Those aspects are already well discussed. They are available in certain part of the world. They are developing in certain part of the world and in certain sectors. But I think it will take its own time and it's continuing to grow. But the bigger benefit which we are seeing is coming from the big data, which is which is at a level above. For example, and I'll show you some examples down the line where we've used it. When we are planning a city is like a live organism. So while we are making these all buildings, bridges, and we are making all these structures, in the end, the product of city is very similar to a performance-based building. So if there's a municipal organization, if there's government, they want to see how the city is behaving, what are the risks, what are the, where are the challenges, and how can we mitigate them? Or for simple things like traffic flow anticipation, or any fire hazard which could happen, or even movement of people, some kind of mob development, or general data which keeps coming up from the entire grid of power consumption in the city. All this is very much possible if we start building an approach of integrating all individual elements, whether they are buildings, whether they are roads, whether they are traffic lights, whether they are sensors, cameras, security, all to a large database, which gets sitting in a data center, which we call as command control center. And via that, we not only help the entire ecosystem to get built up, but we can then monitor, measure, and improve and introspect. So there are some examples which we have done, and I'll want to show them. And Autodesk is one of the key partners with us. Perhaps we are one of the biggest users, and Capricorn is a very old, connect with me, and I personally have a lot of respect for all the people here. A lot of my early learning in my life also has come from Capricorn, so I'm very happy to join the session. And as I was saying, so these smart cities, or this entire infrastructure ecosystem, will be developed when we have a technology-driven approach, not only to design, which is happening. Design is happening now. So if I look at India maturity, or maturity in Europe, Middle East, to some part of Asia, Japan, ANZ, design is very mature. Construction is somewhere we are in 50%. In some places, construction is happening in a pretty automated way. We are able to do a lot of prefab, but operation and maintenance is still where we are trying to enter. There are only few places we've been able to crack in. And our belief is that if we are able to get this operation and maintenance side sorted out with the data which is coming out of our entire digital modeling tools we are doing, this is where the difference will come in. So this is an example where we are working on small blocks of cities, where we are trying to get metadata from all the different elements of city in form of IoT. And then this data we are using to do future analysis or predictive decision-making, plus even helping, like, for example, police to monitor the issues in a city. And these are the solutions we are even taking to municipalities or large developers who are making districts. And we are finding some very interesting things coming out of this. Again, these are some examples where we always see on a building level that we've been able to do asset management, we are able to do operational lifecycle management. But how do we take it away from building, go towards infrastructure, and then link it back to the planning level? These are the next generation targets we have set for us. And can we measure our carbon and reduce that carbon as well when we do this iterative process in a virtual world or digital twin? When we are working on existing cities or existing infrastructure, point cloud scan technology we've seen is increasingly helping us. A lot of work initially we used to do via traditional QS service, but we still rely on that. But point cloud allows us to have a very holistic information of an existing situation in an infrastructure environment. For example, we're working in tunnels in Rishikesh. There is already a very strong religious belt and buildings available. We need to map an entire area into a digital model, and then see how we can modify or penetrate through those existing situations. And it requires involving digital tools, not only which are used for buildings. We are also using tools which are for roads, bridges. There are tools for even doing terrain modeling. We are also using tools to do, for example, simulation around energy points, heat generation, wind flow analysis. All that is coming into play to make our decisions. And it allows us to do the first cut or the first entry point in a much more precision way than we would do in the old way. Immersive technology is something which is gaining ground. And personally, I was on some visits recently where some of our investors, we could actually show them the underground services in a small district of a city. And as an investor or as a senior member of parliament, sometimes they're not able to even look at models and understand. But when you show them something coming up in a very live environment, they're able to ask questions which are very relevant. Everybody is able to query, and it leads to a very healthy discussion where we bring in a lot of cost saving. Otherwise, it becomes very complex, and the stakeholders, which are usually investors or somebody from government, they're not able to understand how complex or how simple this is. So immersive technology, we are seeing increasingly coming handy in the entire ecosystem. Earlier, this was used in small rooms. Now this is getting used in the entire city planning, bridges, tunnels, roads, even metros all around, and then finding interfaces of an existing city, and then how to modify. Very recently, we were upgrading Singapore. We have a huge tunnel project in Singapore, and because in the last 10 years, AECOM was operating in that region, so we already have a immersive technology build model for the entire district. So when we are working right now, we bring in different stakeholders and we show them the existing situation and try to show how we will bring the new tunnel, what will be the impact, what will be the services which will be broken down, and are they allowed to be done? And we are able to make decisions much more faster than what we would do traditionally. These are some examples where we have tried and tested some of these technologies in some way or larger way. So the one I'm showing is a Dholera city. This is getting developed in Gujarat. It is Modi's one of the favorite project, almost like 200,000 acres of development. We were the overall program managers. We did the whole master planning. We designed the whole project, and we have implemented a very digital approach to this entire city. There is a command control center already set up, and when the individual blocks or roads, bridges, cross sections, tunnels, drainages are coming, everything has been put with a sensor, and we are monitoring all the movement of valves, even the flow levels of the water and traffic. And traffic lights are done in a way where if the traffic increases, automatically the sequencing changes. And it's a big kind of a small data center with a big command control center like a power plant has already in the city. And this was a vision our government allowed us to perform and allowed us to put first while the other things are getting developed. This is one of the largest convention center which will come in India. It's a 221-acre development next to Terminal 3 Airport. And this was also a vision of Modi ji, which was on table for a long time. We in AECOM did the whole planning and created this program. This is going to be one of the most efficient convention center. It will have a mix of a retractable stadium, 5-star hotels, 7-star hotels, plus some exhibition space, shopping malls, similar to what you see, for example, in Cyber Hub. It will be a kilometer of Cyber Hub running around here. The construction is already underway for phase 1. The metro from airport has been connected into this in a seamless way by using these digital tools to convince the PWD and the Haryana government about interfaces of their own lands and other issues which were pending for a long time. And with this, what will happen when the passengers will come in, their luggage will straight away get checked into the hotels over here, rather than them to pick over at the airport and bring here. So it will be one of the best state-of-the-art convention center coming up in the whole of Asia region, where we could do air-conditioned space exhibitions. It is an extension of what we have in Central Delhi, the old sorry, it skipped my name, the Pragati Maidan. So, but this is one of, and a lot of tools and technology which I was showing are being used here to make sure the facility comes up in a way which we are planning to have it. It's also completely net water zero. There is no water wastage. The whole water in the plant or in the development is getting consumed on its own and recycled. This is a station, a transit-oriented development which we did in Chengdu, China. And the challenge here was the city was already running. Station was to be brought in, and station had to be integrated to an existing mall. And while doing this, a lot of scans were done for the entire area. And then the business case was built to show to the municipality that if this kind of investment is done, what are the areas we'll have to break down which tenants will get impacted, and then when we build this new facility, what would be the return which will come from the additional retail and the flow of work. So there was a combination of financial sharing between the municipality and the private developer which was investing, and the entire process was run on a simulation before we could get the final go ahead to the program, and it has come up very well. This is India's first transit-oriented development, upgraded station. You must be hearing a lot of stations are going for upgrade. Habibganj is the first one we were doing. And again, this was an existing station, which we had to work upon and convert this into some kind of a modern facility where when passengers come in, they are able to get an experience similar to what they get in a terminal building. So there were layers and layers of services. Trains were always running, and we had to work in a running environment and upgrade the station, which meant we had to show, we had to scan a lot of information here, prepare our digital models with mix of building, rail, structure, deep tunnel, all things put together, and then convince the operation team of railway to allow us to work and prove them that operation will not get stuck if we work in a certain sequence and then complete this work. These are some buildings which you have used to, but the only reason I'm showing here is that we actually, for the first time in India here, created an LOD 350 model. 400 was created eventually for a tender. And the response from the market was, contractor said the clarity of design is so high that the pricing became much more sharper. And this came from Tata as a feedback, and everybody is very excited to see how we can really continue to do that, where the fee levels are low. And in looking at this case study, our clients started giving us more fee as well to make sure we are doing real job, not reverse BIM, but something which is having quality and which can be then later on used for asset management or better improvement, maintenance or predictive maintenance. This is the upcoming terminal for Chennai Airport. So this also involved a lot of technology, because if you go to Chennai, you will see there are two separate terminals. And this new terminal which is coming up was to be built in between them, which meant again the operation of both the terminals will continue and a new terminal will be built in between. So the whole area was scanned, modeled. The new design was also done in complete BIM, and we had to integrate this terminal building with the air side, the city side, and all the transactions for tunnels, roads, bridges, overpasses, underpasses had to be done in a very seamless way to make sure that the operations of the airport is running and still the construction runs smoothly. So we hope this project will, this is very quick in construction right now. And in fact, there were a lot of lessons learned. Like when we started making this central middle building, we discovered there was a tunnel running between the two existing terminals at a certain level, for which we were not able to really understand how to work upon. So we did deep scanning and were able to find some kind of information about it and take some decisions which saved a lot of time. Otherwise, a lot of excavation would have to be done to find out what was there. And there were no existing models, there were no existing drawings for this. So it made our life more difficult. But now this entire facility will be fully digital. And next time any upgrade is required, any modification if it's required, we'll have everything available in advance. And somebody can go and straight away find in the model which valve or which chiller is not operating and what is the issue, and if we replace, where actually it came from, how it was tagged, and you can go back and check all that. So that's all. I think I had a very little time to prepare for this session. I'm sorry if I've deviated from the topic, but I hope I was able to give some insight about how we are using digital tools and advanced technologies to see and make a better ecosystem, which is not only at a building level or at a road level or a bridge level, but it's a combination of ecosystem of infrastructure development at a complete city or a district level. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir, for such an insightful session. Your contribution for the urban transformation and immersive technology is really inspiring for all of us. Thank you so much, sir. And I'll request all the participants to keep on writing your question in the question answer panel, and that will be answered in the last part of the webinar. Now, moving on to the next speaker. I'd like to invite Mr. MK Sunil, Sales Head AEC, Autodesk India. He has been part of the original Revit team and later on joined Autodesk when it was acquired by Autodesk. He represents Autodesk at various different architecture, engineering, and construction industry forums, has been involved in evangelizing BIM across Asia Pacific markets since 2001. Sir, I would like to request you to please join.
Thank you so much. I'm going to, I'm actually traveling, so I'm going to stop my video so that we don't have disruptions because of the Wi-Fi connectivity. So what I'm going to talk about would be a little bit more into the future. I think Manish covered and quite a bit. Thanks, Manish, for that. I think from an Autodesk perspective, you all are our customers. You have been using our product for a very long time. But just to cover a bit about Autodesk, of course, we brought out the product, which is AutoCAD, way back in 1982, 83. Since then, a lot has happened in the industry, right? We also kind of started moving into different part of design itself. So we have solutions for you people like AEC industry as such, architecture, engineering, construction. We also have tools for design and manufacturing. One of the other areas that we are kind of very dominant is media and entertainment, the movies that you see or TV, televisions that you watch, games that you play. We have a big role to play there. A lot of all of that is done using our solution. Right? So moving on, actually, what has happened in our industry? So I said we launched AutoCAD, so it was line, arc, and circle. And you would actually put it in a layer, change the color, and assume it's a wall, door, window, or anything, right? And we actually share that drawing across to the world or the ecosystem around us, and we want all of them to view that line as a brick wall, or line as a window, or line as a concrete wall. So all those but there are no real properties. Of course, over time, we actually, from 3D to BIM, we made a transition. And of course, there are many products in the market for BIM. One of them from our side is Revit, which is very popular in the market. A lot of you are using it. So it started the data approach to design. So you started working with real world components. Now, no more line, arc, and circle. You were actually placing a wall as a wall, a 3D wall. When you put in a window, it punches a hole into the wall and it would deduct the volume of that wall, the window from the wall. So the data actually started to give you physical and metadata with that. So you had information that could actually help you downstream and upstream of the building design and construction process. It was important that while I studied architecture and I passed out in 1990, a lot of time the work process involved that we would, as an architect, we would do design, and at one point of time, I would send the design across to someone to do some analysis. And when it comes back, if there was some changes to be done, that would mean the work that I've done last 10, 15 days will have to backtrack, and that becomes redundant. There are a lot of loss in terms of information that you created, right? So I think what we did next was actually bringing that whole idea that design and analysis has to go hand in hand. There, actually, we launched our suites of products. So one of them that's very popular is ACIC, right? Architecture, engineering, construction, industry solutions, right? So it's a bundle of a lot of solutions, which included design solution that is create, that you could create Revit model or AutoCAD or DWG drawing within the products. And it also had analysis capability products in the bundle, so you could actually quickly run some analysis and then move on, rather than you actually losing a lot of work that you have done in the process. So it actually helped the design to be much better, and also a loss of productivity. Then came the process, the thinking that you were creating a lot of information, right? Whether it is DWG drawings or Revit files or Excel sheets or specification in terms of Word document and stuff like that. There are a lot of information that we architects and engineers create for a project, but we hardly had a strategy in terms of how it is being shared in the ecosystem, right? Thereby, we actually had an area where we needed to give it a thought. And that was one of the area where we actually saw that projects never finished on time. It was always over budget, because communication played an important role in what we do on a daily basis. So we thought, okay, now we are starting to talk about connected BIM, where we actually, in a single breath, we talk about create and share. What we create as information, how do you efficiently share? So we, almost everyone that is in the industry, we should actually have a strategy in terms of making sure the professionals that you work with have the right information, a single source of truth, or right set of information on the right day. It shouldn't happen that you come to a meeting and you realize someone is working on an older file, older design, or the person did not even get the information in time. So all that could be eliminated if you have a common data platform. And we actually came up with BIM 360 Docs, BIM 360 Pro, and Build, and all of that, that could actually take you from concept to construction. So the data can be shared across every professional that actually is in play in that particular project. So it's imperative that all of you actually think about information that you create. How efficiently are you sharing that with the ecosystem, right? Of course, now when we look at all of this, we need to think about what is the future of making. And our tools are very much aligned, or the development that we are doing today actually help you to actually drive towards that whole process. So one is generative design. How could you actually automate some of the processes where machine can help you with multiple design options, multiple design ideas, and it could use artificial intelligence and machine learning and blockchain and all of that actually to give you that. Our brain can only do so much, but today computing power is unlimited because of the cloud computing at your fingertips. So generative design is a big area of development for us. Then the other area that we see, especially in our field, that is actually gaining popularity or thinking, is design for manufacturing and assembly. That is DFMA. So in that context, the building that you see today, whether you're flying in an airport or some of the modern buildings, 80 to 90% what you see around you in that building is manufactured. So that would mean that we need a tighter integration between the building and the manufacturing. So basically construction has to actually take into account how things are manufactured. So your design tools should be able to get the data, let's say curtain wall data or any other information, to the manufacturing facility without loss of information. The manufacturing industry is able to take that information from your design data further refine it and manufacture it, and then send it to the construction site. And you can possibly track all this uh, closed loop process that is happening. And the building elements are then fitted like a Lego blocks and finished as a building product, right? So buildings are today manufactured rather than constructed. So you need to start thinking about that as you go along, because that is only going to help you manufacture or construct building faster, right? We need to build a lot more than what we have done over last so many years. With the population numbers, we have actually spoken about it multiple times. The requirement that is going to be in 2050, almost 70% of that requirement is still not built. That means the building that will exist in 2050, 70% of it is still not built. Of course, whatever we have today, that many or most of it will have to be rebuilt or retrofitted and all of that. So there's a lot of work that we need to do. And we cannot be doing the same way that we have done in last 10 years, 15 years, or 20 years. We need to change our gears and be able to deliver maybe 1,000 buildings a day. How can you do that? We need to start think about all that, right? Then the thought about when you talk about sustainability also comes the idea of resiliency, right? How resilient are you in your practice, right? And that actually drives me to think about digital twins. You are hearing about all that, and what that means is today, especially in Indian context, you can see flooding. You can't avoid flooding, right? Any city in the world can get flooded because it's natural disaster. But how can you be resilient that you can jump back to life much faster than what it's today? There's a flood, it's like 6 days, 7 days, the water is still there, and we don't know uh, when the life will get normal. But being able to build a resilient city means you're looking at the digital asset of the city itself and understanding the drainage requirement, the other city requirement, and working through that design process to fix it so that future disaster can be minimized and we can actually jump back to life much faster, right? So that's the area that we actually see uh, disruptions happening, I would say. Design automation, uh, 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 DFMA, digital twins, and all of that, right? Of course, artificial intelligence and machine learning, Manish also spoke about it. People have already started uh, actually putting that into design practice. We have a product called Space Maker that is there, which actually allows you to do early conceptual design, modeling, multiple design iterations, and all of that. So with that, actually, I just don't want to take much time. I wanted to just give you an idea where we are and where we are going. So as I spoke about, there is the industry is ripe. I think we are all in the right place. A lot of work that needs to be done. Very positive outlook, especially in India. You have seen Mr. Modi talk about large investments in infrastructure space as we develop the arteries of roads and network of transportation. You will have newer cities coming up, giving you opportunity to build more infrastructure, new cities with newer facilities, a lot of all kind of building types, whether schools or more hospitals, and all of that is going to be needed to house the people in the future. So I want to wish you all the best and all your time that you spend to build all this beautiful infrastructure around us. And thank you.
Hello.
Hi, are you there?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So, if there are any questions, I'll be happy to take.
So we're actually taking questions in the end.
Okay.
Yep. So, sir, thank you so much for your enlightening views about the numerous challenges in the AEC industry. And we are also grateful for your contributions to overcome these challenges by enhancing the efficiency and the productivity with the tools and the modern era. We're so thankful for that. Now, coming over to our next speaker, Mr. Devansh Kakkad. Just give me a moment. Mr. Devansh, he has technical expert specialist with the AEC, Autodesk India. He's a civil engineer by education and he joined Autodesk in 2016 as technical solution specialist. He has been currently leading technical engagements for Autodesk in North, East India and SAARC region. Sir, I would like to request you to please join.
Thanks. Naman. If you may allow, I'll just quickly share my screen.
Please, sir.
Hi, good morning, everyone. I know the speakers before me have enlightened you enough and they've talked in detail about how technology is a great enabler in terms of addressing the challenges that we face today. I have a small presentation covering some of those technologies. I think Manish ji and Sunil and Shatabdi have in depth kind of articulated the fact that why we need technology and essentially covering all the key areas and segments where we see technology boosting our overall productivity and improving our current workflows. But just to set out the context, I just wanted to go back a step and understand why do we need, what's a need for digitization, because that's come to the fore as a basic requirement. If I look in terms of the opportunity that lies ahead of us, I know speakers before me articulated some of these key facts in terms of large infrastructure projects that the government has envisioned in terms of delivering and that kind of helping us reach that 5 trillion target as an economy. And there are initiatives around housing for all, there are initiatives around smart cities. We have a huge budget outlay for the national infrastructure pipeline, almost $1.4 trillion. So we need to deliver this and we need to deliver it fast. So if we do it in the current way, this is where we'll land up. This was a study done by one of the agencies from Niti Aayog, which articulated the fact that with the current way that we approach our construction, the current way, the current use, because of lack of use of technology, close to 50% of the projects are running over budget. Almost 45% of the projects are running behind schedule. So how do we mitigate those things? How do we come up with solutions which can help us move away from this into faster project delivery, in terms of delivering projects on budget, or even, ensuring that as consultants, as contractors, we are able to ensure profitability while we are delivering project. So one of the key challenges why this happens is construction industry as a whole works in a very siloed manner. There is a huge disconnect. So everybody is creating their own data, but there is very little amalgamation of this information happening. So I'm creating my own set of drawings which are saved somewhere within my office in a PDF format, and then at different milestones I'll be sharing this with other stakeholders, and that is where the challenge crops up. Likewise, we have our own fragmented workflow. So the structural engineer might be focusing on his own needs. They might be using applications and tools which address their requirement. But essentially, how that information can be passed to the other stakeholders, that's something which I believe needs to be given a lot of thought, because that essentially is where the data gap comes. Uh, Again, we'll be discussing some of these things in depth. A few challenges and that we've discussed, but then there are other trends that we've seen. Obviously, the pandemic has accelerated the need for digital transformation. As per a study conducted by McKinsey, it says like almost 7 years. By that acceleration, that need for digital transformation has been accelerated by 7 years for different stakeholders. Also, we are all in the know-how of how population explosion and people moving into cities, which is basically causing the whole issue around urbanization. So today, in India, if I talk about within cities, we are a population of 400 million approximately. And this is envisioned by 2030, this will almost double. So there is first the need of ensuring the infrastructure that we've built, there is a lot of pressure on it that remains functional. Plus, there is a need for developing new infrastructure to accommodate this influx of people that will happen, because people will be moving into cities for better job opportunities, for better growth prospect. Also, there is a parallel need to ensure that whatever projects we deliver are sustainable. So we have limited resources, and we need to also take into account that we leave enough of these resources for our future generations. So we deliver more projects, and with this paucity of resources, with this lack of resources. So in essence, what we have to do is we have to find better means, we have to find better technologies, better workflows or better processes, in terms of how we deliver these projects. Digitization is at the core of how we can optimize our workflows. And just to take you through the journey in terms of the construction industry, how that digitization happened. 50 years back, people realized, like with the advent of computers, that they can move away from drafting boards and have much better precision in their drawings. They can draw things faster. The accuracy could be much better. So they moved from drafting boards into CAD-based environments, and they started. And again, even today, people use AutoCAD for that. But 15 years back, there was again a new trend which came into the industry, which was building information modeling, which was moving away from, as Sunil pointed out, lines, circles, and arcs towards component-based modeling. So what I plan to construct on site, I create a digital replica of that using design authoring tools. With the intent that I capture a lot of metadata. It is not about just creating a 3D component. It is about capturing the information pertaining to that component. So if I'm creating a wall, I will define all the requisite information pertaining to that wall. So what material I'll be using, what are the different layers of the wall. So this metadata, this information that we capture becomes really useful downstream, maybe during construction, maybe during execution, and particularly relevant in terms of the operations. Then the next phase came where cloud today is becoming the need of the hour. How easily we can share information across different stakeholders, how easily we can provide access to this information to the decision makers so that they can take decisions faster. And that is where cloud became the underlying platform where data today resides, and how easily we share and consume information. And finally, is the next piece of digital transformation where, as Manish also pointed out, and Sunil also kind of articulated that fact, you're leveraging IoTs and sensors to understand the performance of the facility that we've designed. So in the operations phase, moving away from, let's say, a reactive based approach where probably a particular asset stops functioning, we are able to predict, its behavior, when probably it's overheating. So that sensor will quickly give me an alert so that I can take corrective action. So we'll discuss about some of these things in depth. So we've covered like what BIM is. It's basically the foundation of digital transformation as far as construction is concerned. It is all about moving away from that drawing, or that 2D line, circle, and arc approach towards a component based approach. So it's all about virtual construction. It is about digital construction. So what I plan to construct on site a year down the line, I create a digital replica of the same building, the same asset, with the intent that I'm able to develop a foresight in terms of what could go wrong. So let's say today what happens is when we are working in 2D, most of the coordination happens through a manual process where somebody tries to identify what are the, whether the lateral clearances are there, the vertical clearances are there, what is the minimum offset that is required. And sometimes, because this whole process is manual, there is a lot of omission which might happen, and those issues crop up at site, which leads to a lot of rework. It leads to RFIs, and essentially it all contributes to the delay of the project, and which will have an overhead cost. So the idea is how we can mitigate some of these things by creating digital replica of the same asset and identify these sort of issues earlier in the design process. And that is what BIM basically helps us do. And this is some of the key benefits that organizations who've made that jump, who've made that shift, have realized. So they realize better cost predictability. They have been able to optimize their schedules. Again, there is a significant reduction in terms of the errors which come during execution, which come to notice during execution. And obviously, because we are working in a digital environment, we can do a lot of simulation. We can do a lot of analysis to optimize our design. And I'll be trying to address some of those things as well. But in essence, because we are creating a digital replica, I am able to understand the context. So probably as the owner, probably as the contractor, I need to be able to envision what I'm constructing, right? So in 2D, again, even though when we are working today in 2D, some part of it we are trying to envision in 3D in our head. Here we get an actual visualization, and we'll discuss, like Manishji pointed out, VR and immersive experience is what people want today, right? They want to be within the space before it is actually constructed. So that is what BIM, that path of BIM leads us to. The whole idea is to connect all project stages in a unified manner. So provide you an environment where data can seamlessly flow from one stage to the other stage, right? From my design phase through into construction and execution, and finally the same data with changes, and you can convert it into an as-built, can be leveraged at the operations phase. Now I'll be talking again. I had a lot to cover. I know there is, due to lack of time, I'll just try and encapsulate some of the trends that we see in construction, which are being leveraged. So it's around how we use new, high definition survey methods which are available, drones and LiDAR techniques, to optimize our workflows, whether it be during the survey phase of the project, or maybe during the construction and execution phase, where we want to validate whether the construction is happening as per design or is there a variance. Similarly, on the design stage, how we can optimize it further. Sunil mentioned about generative design being a key concept, where we are able to evaluate thousands of options, or, let's say as an architect, if I have to design a particular facility, because I have a lack of time and I need to deliver that project, I can only evaluate up to 3, maybe maximum 4 options. But here you build in the constraints, you define the goals, and using artificial intelligence, using machine learning, the platform will start suggesting me different alternatives and a best fit kind of scenario. We'll discuss about mobility simulation coming to the fore. So today we are developing different urban means of transport. We are coming up with metros, we are coming up with airports, we're developing new road systems. Then how do we run simulations to understand what we are designing will be a much more optimum solution, where people have better experience. We'll have, again, from a traffic simulation point of view, we'll have limited jams, so all those things we can understand better. So Lil kind of articulated about the fact how we are today not constructing building, we are manufacturing buildings. So we will discuss about that. Again, a critical piece of the digital transformation is in terms of having a common data platform in place so that people can seamlessly exchange information. And finally, we'll discuss about digital twins and how sustainability is integrated in the entire process. Quickly starting off with high definition surveys. Again, we can see like how technology advancement has kind of reduced the cost of a typical 3D scanner multifold, and how portable it has become today. And there are new methods of survey which we see today gaining a lot of prevalence. So today you can quickly mount a GoPro camera on a drone, and instead of using aerial photogrammetry, that's using a aeroplane, you can maybe do the aerial photogrammetry using that drone, and again in a very quick manner. And then once we've captured that information, now that could be photos, that could be laser scans, but that could be in real time converted to a digital point cloud data. The process is pretty simplified. I'll just quickly walk you through the process. So you have this camera clicking 360-degree photographs of that facility. Again, it could be a building facility, it could be infrastructure asset, could be a tunnel. We'll look at that example as well. But once you've captured all that information, all those images, all those photographs that are captured could be stitched together to convert into a 3D point cloud, which becomes as a base reference. Today, one of the things that we've seen with station redevelopment project, and I'm just taking example of that as a reference, or maybe it could be heritage monuments. We don't have the drawings readily available, the as-built drawings for those projects. So how do we plan for renovation? How do we plan for retrofit works that we want to do? So this provides a great workflow in terms of how we can develop the as-built models for those facilities and then plan out any expansion works, any enhancement works that we need to plan for that facility. So this data could then be brought into the design authoring tools where you can kind of see an amalgamation of what is existing on site today in comparison to what new works I want to plan out. So maybe whatever expansion I need to plan out. So this gives you a context in terms of, rather than doing physical work and measuring things on site and then trying to develop drawings of that, you can simplify that workflow. Also, this could be a great technology, particularly in terms of evaluating whether the construction is happening as per design or is there a variance, right? Where challenges might crop up. So here we can kind of superimpose the two worlds, the physical world and the digital world, to identify in terms of execution where things went wrong. So again, provides, so that technology is already there. It's how about we leverage that technology. And similarly, we can do it for civil infra projects. It could be a hydro project, it could be a road project, it could be a rail project in terms of understanding where I have my signal lines, the overhead electrical lines, and then if I want to expand it from a 2-lane corridor to a 4-lane corridor. So all those things we can quickly evaluate in a faster manner. Likewise, as I was referring, it could be overground. Shwetabji mentioned about underground utilities and underground development coming to the fore, how we can leverage that aspect. So even if it is underground infrastructure, maybe tunnels or some form of culverts. So all of those things we can easily capture through this LiDAR-based method or those techniques and convert that to a point cloud to give us a context of what is existing on site today. So as-built modeling becomes really simplified. Coming to the next aspect, which is generative design. So just to quickly throw light in terms of what generative design is all about, it's a process which allows the designer, it could be an engineer and an architect, evaluate multiple outcomes based on the goals that they want to achieve. Now, a goal could be increase the FAR. A goal could be reduce the material requirement. A goal could be reduce the weight, overall weight of the component. So again, you set the goals and then you also set the constraints. So I need minimum this length. I need minimum this dimension. So based on those constraints, what you see is the platform evaluates different options. So again, has multiple workflow benefits. First and foremost is reduction in terms of the time. Second is helping you take decisions much more faster because it gives you clear data points in terms of the benefits. So maybe in this particular design alternative, you will have the minimum cost requirement. In this design alternative, you're covering the maximum surface area. So all those things become really critical. Another key aspect is it reduces wastage, both in terms of effort, in terms of material, in terms of time requirement, again amplifying the benefit. Now we've used this technique. I mean, it's not like we kind of came up with it and directly brought it to the industry. We first of all tested it out on our own project. So our Canada office, our Toronto office, the overall space layout, the space planning happened leveraging this technique. So we defined certain criteria based on the teams that had to work within that office. And I mean, there were different constraints in terms of team preference, in terms of where they wanted to sit, which teams wanted to be on the outside, which teams wanted to be on the inside, which teams had a preference of having views, and which teams were like, no, we wanted to sit on the inside, because external views are a distraction. So again, all those constraints were defined, and then the platform evaluated thousands of options to give us the best fit scenario. The same technology today we've also implemented on the civil side of our workflows. So let's say if I'm planning a new township, the first aspect of it is in terms of the land development that I need to do. So how do I develop that land parcel? How do I develop that site to minimize my volume requirement? So the cut and fill volumes in terms of material, how I can optimize, how I can balance that particular site. So again, we can just simply define our goals, define the constraints, and what you see in real time happening is the platform is automatically trying to balance the site to minimize the volume requirements. So here you can see like how the contours are changing, and how it's elevating different levels to come up with a balanced site, which minimizes my material requirement as far as the site is concerned. Another key area which Sunil also mentioned is this SpaceMaker tool that Autodesk acquired. Amazing tool when it comes to urban planning. Manish mentioned about transit-oriented development project. Again, could be a great benefit. It could again has wider connotations, wider applications. Could be used for township planning. It could be used for urban planning to a greater extent. So, from a transit-oriented development today, what we are seeing, various agencies from railways are trying to monetize on the land banks that we have. Now, here is a great tool which allows us to evaluate a different mix of options. So, how much of retail space I would want, how much of residential space I would want, and then what is the monetary benefit that I can derive from that development work. Could be really beneficial for owners who are developing new land parcels. So, what should be the most optimum orientation of their building in which they could maximize the number of units on a particular floor plate? You can do different forms of simulations from a sustainability standpoint. So, wind flow studies, solar studies in terms of evaluating the net radiation that you will receive on a particular phase and reduce your heating and cooling requirements. So, great tool. All you need to do is again sketch the parcel and then define your goals and constraints. The next piece I wanted to touch base was around mobility simulation. Again, Manish kind of articulated a bit around this. So as we are developing new infrastructure, we need to ensure that this infrastructure meets the requirement of the future. So again, in terms of traffic simulation, when we are planning new roads, when we are planning new junctions, when we are planning flyovers and bridges and all those things, we need to evaluate in which particular scenario. First thing is I can minimize the cost, and second thing, provide the user a better experience so that I can reduce the queuing time and have a more free flow of the traffic. So if it's a junction that I need to design, all I have to do is specify the volumetric data. So this could come from an origin and destination study, the capacity or the volume capacity for flow at a particular day and time. And then we can plan the entire design based on that capacity data. And it will automatically highlight to me the scenarios where I'm having a higher queue time, and then I can come up with design alternatives. Maybe I can increase the number of lanes. Maybe I can add a roundabout there. If there is a need, like if roundabout is not solving the issue, then maybe I need to have a great interchange, a flyover of sorts in that intersection. But then it allows me to study these alternatives during the design phase with data in my mind, with data in my mind. And it gives me a real sense of outcome in terms of once I design it, then what kind of experience the user will have. So we can do these kind of studies and these alternatives. Likewise, from a people simulation perspective, COVID brought with itself a lot of challenges where we had to maintain that 6 feet physical distancing gap, and it kind of added to the pressure of our railway stations and airports, because again these things were not thought when these infrastructure assets were being designed. And then we had to kind of revisit our overall layouts in terms of how do we ensure that physical distancing given the constraints that we have of the infrastructure today. So here are tools available which will allow you to quickly reevaluate your design and come up with the most suitable option, even considering like if we envision a pandemic sort of scenario in the future. right? So here is again a quick example. So as you see, like the physical distancing requirement came into fore, the queuing started. People started queuing up, and I remember, or probably I think most of us remember what happened at Bangalore airport on a particular day where queues were extended beyond the airport, right? So how do we mitigate those things? By leveraging these technologies, doing these simulations beforehand to be better prepared, that if such a scenario occurs, then what steps we need to take. So we can do that simulation and identify, okay, maybe I add more lanes, so I keep that buffer basically in terms of my design. Today, because my design is such constraint, I cannot add more lanes because I don't have space. So those things can be planned out better, and we could have a much better people experience, and this could be across the board. Quickly moving over to the next aspect, as I move into construction, and I think we've discussed about this, that today buildings are not just being constructed, they are being manufactured, they are being installed. So that's what design for manufacturing or industrialized construction is doing for us. It is saving a lot of material wastage, and it is reducing the overall construction timeline. I hope you remember very recently in China, they constructed a particular hospital within 18 days. Imagine, having, if we can do that similar thing in India, again, how fast we can develop our infrastructure. So again, it has multitudes of benefits. Cost reduction is one aspect of it. Again, because we are able to deliver things faster, we can manage our schedules. They become much more predictable because all we have to do is, most of the components are being prefabricated. It just needs to be transported to the site, and things need to be put in place. Leads to much better predictability in terms of the overall project delivery. And again, today we see a lot of skill shortage of resources. Again, that aspect is also addressed because now people don't have to do physical work. It's all installation. So maybe we just need to tie up things, we need to screw things together, and that's how the whole process looks like. So every aspect of my building will actually be a prefabricated component. And again, this is a quick example of how a hospital facility in future could be constructed. So everything from that window frame to the window component to the different equipments that I have, everything could be put in place, and we can deliver the project as a as a prefabricated or a prefabricated structure. Now, we've discussed a lot of these aspects, but the critical aspect in all the things that we've discussed is the importance of data. Today, the biggest challenge we see within the construction industry is how data is being shared. There is a big disconnect. Today, across the project life cycle, there are different stakeholders which come on board at different stages, and they're all creating their own set of data, and it's being shared across different methods and mechanisms. So we are using platforms like WhatsApp, Outlook, emails, PDFs, and again, different methods and means to communicate. But then at the end of the day, there is no unified way in which I can keep a track in terms of all this communication. So that is where having a common data platform really helps me address some of these requirements. So as and when information is being shared, I'm always in sync. I will, all this data exchange, instead of happening through multiple media, happens in a unified environment, and that's what we refer as the common data environment. So everybody is looking at a single source of truth for the project, and it could be for all project centric communication. It is not just from a design and construction standpoint, even from a contractual standpoint, from a financial standpoint, all my data could be unified in one single repository. So the idea is, how do we basically come up with a platform which will help you digitize, integrate, and optimize the workflows that you have today. What it will lead you to do is unify your data, and because this data gets unified, we can run certain data analytics on that data and give you real-time insights. So whether the progress on the project is happening as per schedule, if there are a lot of issues, then what's the risk associated with that issue? So you get a lot of analytics. Now, when I talk about unifying data, as I illustrated earlier, it could be all project-centric data. It is not just your AutoCAD drawings or so it's not per se a generic data hosting platform. It's a enterprise level cloud based data management platform where again you have multiple aspects that could be addressed and different aspects that can be consolidated in a unified manner. So basically, what we've come up with is a platform called Autodesk Construction Cloud. And right from your design stage, where you're using authoring tools like Revit and Civil 3D and InfraWorks, you can push this data onto the data management platform. You can collaborate real time between stakeholders to visualize progress of work. You can coordinate between different services to find out where the clashes are happening. And this all is happening automatically on the cloud with minimal user intervention. And then you can quickly generate quantities based on the models that are published. You can visualize real-time progress of work by updating metadata for that particular model from site. So maybe a particular component got installed, or maybe a particular, in terms of, let's say, if it's a civil project, then how much concrete pouring happened on site. So that all thing you can visualize in real time. And then from an execution standpoint, I kind of digitize my entire workflow to go completely paperless on site. And that is happening today even in projects like Bangalore International Airport, where they have completely digitized their workflow and all input from the site is coming through handheld devices, through mobiles, through tablets, using the Autodesk Construction Cloud platform. Just to give you a preview, just to give you a context of what I'm referring, the idea is to have a unified interface. All stakeholders from the design, it could be any particular organization. It could be the owner, it could be the contractor, it could be the design consultant, it could be the subcontractor. Everyone is looking at the same piece of data. One critical challenge in terms of getting work executed today is I'm not even sure the drawing that I'm leveraging to get work executed, but whether that is the most current version of the drawing, or whether there a revision has happened, because I'm just receiving PDFs, right? Here is where we are trying to mitigate that issue, that as and when design updates happen, that update seamlessly flows to the cloud, and people who are getting the work executed on site in real time are seeing those changes, those updates, and they can even compare exactly where the change happened. What changed, whether when they recommended a particular change, whether that was incorporated or not. So it makes the job of a decision maker much more simpler because he has real data that he can visualize. They can provide all communication, like we are discussing, WhatsApp, emails. I mean, we can just kind of bypass all that and restrict all communication related to the project in a unified environment. And maybe even 5 years down the line, if I want to revisit why a particular decision was taken, I have all that information readily available. So that kind of brings in a lot more accountability within the team. And we cannot give lame excuses, probably it went to junk. I mean, we had a firewall policy, I did not receive attachments and all those things. And because data is today being consolidated in this environment, whatever models you are preparing, we can actually interface these systems together to create a project information level model, what we call as a project information model, and identify where things could go wrong and visualize everything much more faster. I think Manish, you mentioned about the essence of leveraging new technologies like VR and AR and mixed reality to give a much more immersive experience to our owners, to our stakeholders. So this is again something which we've tried to integrate, leveraging some of our partners to the construction cloud platform. So it is not about just visualizing it in 3D, but then leveraging these connected platforms. You can just convert that 3D model into an immersive experience, and then you could have review meetings. Just you can don a VR headset, maybe an Oculus Rift, an HTC Vive, and you all can be together within that space. So you don't really need to visit the site from your office. You can parallelly do project reviews, escalate issues, identify where the gaps are, and all of that could happen right from within your office space. Even if you're working remote, I believe that provides you a great alternatives. Reduce your travel costs, reduce the travel time, where again which can be optimized for other more meaningful works. So you can do all review operations that is required, and any issues, any challenges that come to the fore that are directly integrated into the construction cloud platform. So it automatically could be tracked in terms of like who it was assigned to, what was the due date, and all those things could be simplified. So that's again something which is already in place and is being leveraged across the globe for different projects. Very quickly, just last couple of things that I want to touch base before I conclude is around digital twins. What is a digital twin? It's a digital replica of the actual physical asset. So idea is we leverage IoTs and sensors and all these devices that we have to monitor in real time the progress that is happening, monitor in real time the performance of a particular asset. So whatever details I've put in during that BIM phase that we are considering, the information that has been fed in into the component, this becomes really critical at this stage, and you can link different aspects of that asset, from a manufacturing standpoint, from a asset maintenance standpoint, all that data. And then finally, you can also link sensors, that are installed to monitor in real time the performance of that asset, any maintenance activity that is required. So all those things could be planned in a much better manner. And last but not the least, sustainability is an important goal for all of us. And again, across buildings and infrastructure industry, Autodesk has relevant tools which will help you deliver projects in a more sustainable and a more efficient manner. I know I'm just running out of time. So I'm just kind of skimming some of these aspects, but in case you have any questions related to sustainability, feel free to reach out to us. We have great solutions which will help you reduce the overall carbon footprint of the building, help you improve the occupant experience by doing certain airflow studies within the facility, and meet the criteria set out by various rating agencies like LEED and GREA and all those things. And also from an infrastructure standpoint, reduce the wastage and improve the overall efficiency of the building. With that, I would like to hand it over back to Naman. Back to you, Naman.
Thank you so much, Devansh, for such an insightful presentation. Sorry, we had to rush through that. Your views towards the digital construction with mitigating the inefficiencies, non-compliances, and rework are deeply valued. So now we'll head over to the question and answer session. So please keep on writing the questions in the Q&A panel so that we can ask our eminent panelists to answer that. So there's one question by Mr. Srinivas. Government of India has initiated prestigious smart cities program across India, but intended objectives are not reached. Instead, they become another municipal roads infrastructure expansion project. If we analyze realistically, what could be the reason? That's an open to all the panelists.
Devansh, you like to take that? I think it was addressed by some of the speakers. Like Manish has also addressed some of these issues.
So again, it's an evolving thing. I mean, so smart cities is I mean, if I define like what's the end outcome, like how do we consider a city smart? I mean, if we have smarter infrastructure for the city, if we have better connectivity within the study, so it's an evolution. I mean, the end goal, again, I think I agree. I mean, we are on a journey. It will take its own time. But then how do we realize that is something that I think we leverage, technology being an enabler in terms of delivering a true smart city. I think Manish mentioned about Dholera as one of the projects that they are working upon, and how, again, and I can give you a personal experience because Autodesk platform has been leveraged right from the conceptual stage in terms of, so this project had a lot of challenges typically related to drainage problems. So how do we do the land development? So they leveraged a lot of Autodesk solutions in terms of doing the land development, ensuring the road infrastructure that I need, that I develop. We do not end up in a situation where roads are being inundated with water because it's all in a low-lying area, and it comes into, everything drains out because that's a watershed. Everything drains out into the city. So how do we plan that city to address and identify these challenges, and then deliver a city which is truly smart in the sense that I have the best experience out of it. But yeah, I don't know if I completely answered, but yes, these are some of the things that we can look at in terms of how we can ensure the delivery of that project.
Thank you so much, sir. So another question for Mr. Shwetab. Underground services in metropolitan cities are aged and lacking authentic records. What preliminary work is being done to enable redevelopment of old and by now inadequate underground services? Sir?
Devansh, you like to answer?
Yeah, absolutely. So again, the first and foremost aspect is in terms of capturing the as-built data for those assets. Now, again, we can use more than various means in terms of capturing that. So doing initial surveys, leveraging LiDAR-based techniques is in terms of understanding what different services go through that underground utility. So if it's, let's say, a tunnel, what are the different services which run through that tunnel, so that any redevelopment, any enhancement that I'm planning, I don't interfere with an existing asset that is already in place. Also, we also have to do a lot of ground studies in terms of like understanding, like if any disturbance to the ground will have a significant impact in terms of the overall existing structure. So again, there are different aspects that need to be taken into account when we typically are looking at redevelopment of these old underground utilities and underground services. I think Shatabdi mentioned about the Atlanta project, the Atlanta Metro project, which is very near to the city. So what the team did was they identified, so first of all, they did the as-built modeling for the existing tunnel, and then leveraged BIM as the process to completely envision how the new tunnel is going to come up, whether there will be any impact of the new tunnel on the existing utilities. So all those things were tackled before they went into the execution phase.
Thank you so much for that. There's another question. Considering the investment and maintenance of the hardware and the software involved, what percentage of Indian industry can be reached effectively? That's a question by Professor Krishna.
Not very clear. What percentage of Indian industry? Professor Krishna, if you could clarify more on the question.
Is it around digitization? I mean, yeah, it's not very clear.
So kindly input your comments in the Q&A and we shall answer that. So there's another question. Can we do complete conditional assessment for underground utilities by using BIM?
Okay, so yes. Again, if you can clarify like what all, because there are different aspects from an assessment standpoint that we can evaluate. Again, once we have the BIM model, we can do different forms of simulations and analysis, again, from structural analysis standpoint, from a ground level monitoring standpoint. So we can do different simulations. We can assess the utility. But if you can just clarify, like in terms of what all different forms of assessment you would want to do, we can answer that a bit more elucidly.
Okay, thank you, sir, for that. I'd like all the participants to keep on writing in the Q&A so that we can answer. We're already running late, so please. So there's another last question I like to ask Mr. Devansh. To realize the use of this technology, our policy deciders needs to be presented with available technology options. Cause of today in India, money is important than quality of time required for construction. So what are the efforts being made towards the same? Also, the technology needs to be made more affordable to the beginner professionals. At present cost, it's too high. It has to be reduced. So you would like to comment on that, sir?
So again, I mean, I would want Chakri sir to give his input, but one thing that obviously we realize that technology is the need of the hour, and again, it needs to be, it needs to be available at an affordable cost. So with that intent in mind, what Autodesk did as the first thing was move towards a subscription-based approach, and the idea was to make technology more affordable. Instead of having a huge capital outlay at the onset of the project, again, it could, I mean, be defined as an operational expense related to that project. Again, see, what you need to think it in two ways. One thing is at the outset, what is the cost cost that I have to input in terms of adopting that technology. And the second aspect is in terms of what is the benefit, what is the return on investment I'm deriving. So what I feel is that in the longer run, the investment of technology is far less as compared to the benefits that I can derive in terms of project delivery, in terms of doing project optimization. So those benefits far outweigh the investment. But Chakri sir, any thoughts you would want to give?
So, what I like to address is in Autodesk, even if I restrict myself to Autodesk ecosystem currently in terms of technology, we do have a very wide spectrum of cost versus kind of solutions we offer. And we can take this one-on-one depending on the customer's own project needs, team size, and the kind of project you are handling. You could go for those solutions. So they are already very cost-effective solution. You should just compare the cost with many other developer across the world. Their cost is in many cases many times more than what Autodesk offer. So as an Autodesk ecosystem, they believe in democratization of technology. I know in Indian context still the cost seems to be higher, but the kind of like what Devansh rightly mentioned, we need to look at the output which you're going to get using this technology, the advantage which you're going to get. So we need to evaluate all those things. Of course, there is a challenge which we see on everyday basis is that in spite of spending in the technology, you don't get the right resources which is able to fully utilize the technology. And that's again an area where we have been now supporting a lot of our customer and upgrading their team to able to fully leverage the technology, because the tools are evolving very fast. Every year there is so much of new development which is happening in the solutions from Autodesk, but many of the users are not able to fully leverage them. And once you're getting that output you desire, I'm sure you'll be more than happy to really invest in these kind of solutions.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you, Devansh. With that note, I would like to thank all the panelists and all the participants for taking out the time and making this webinar a fruitful experience for everyone. And thanks, and we hope to see you all in the next webinar. With that, we'll conclude today's session. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you for your time today.